Hello, everybody. I'm some Loudmouth on the internet with an opinion, and I know it's been a while, but I'm back in style. We've gone through a lot these past couple of years. We've had a global pandemic, we got the possibility of World War III on the horizon, but the thing that really scares me the most, and the thing that makes me most worried about the way our civilization is headed, is Disney's constant live-action remakes. The 2019 remake of Dumbo is a fucking piece of shit. One of Disney's worst remakes they've done, and that is saying a lot. To really explain why this remake in particular offended me more than most, we have to go all the way back to the beginnings of the Walt Disney Studio, more than 80 years ago. In 1940, Walt Disney released Fantasia, an epic and very expensive animated movie that featured various different segments mixed with classical music. While considered by many, myself included, to be one of the greatest movies ever made, and it's obvious that a whole lot of artistic passion was put into it, it sadly didn't do as well at the box office as Disney was hoping it would. This was kind of a crushing blow for the studio. Had Fantasia been a hit, we probably would have gotten a lot more movies like it from the Walt Disney Studio, but since it wasn't, they decided to go in a very different direction for their next project. They decided to go for a much smaller and much shorter picture, but one that was still charming and effective, one that would still become an endearing classic for the audience. And that's why in 1941, 1 year later, we got Dumbo! Made on a much smaller budget of less than $1 million, and being only around an hour in length, Dumbo tells the story of Dumbo, a small elephant born into a circus life, but cursed with rather big ears that make him the object of bullying and mockery of the other animals and humans around him. Dumbo sadly lacks the raw artistic majesty that makes Fantasia such a classic. But fortunately, it really didn't need it, because Dumbo tells a very simple story, and tells it really well. It's just a story of a very young and very mistreated social outcast who overcomes bigotry and prejudice from the various people and animals around him, eventually turns his kind of weirdness and disability into a natural talent, being the miraculous ability for an elephant to fly. While Dumbo didn't come anywhere close to being as much of a hit as Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs 4 years earlier, it did actually manage to turn a profit for the studio during a time when profits were hard to come by due to the war. And Dumbo over the years developed a following from kids who grew up with it. So it's not too surprising that they would select it as one of their movies worthy of a remake. In 2010, the Tim Burton directed live-action remake of Alice in Wonderland premiered. Although a terrible movie that was reviled by critics, it managed to gross over $1 billion, so of course the studio considered it a massive hit. So it kind of makes sense they would ask Tim Burton to come back and direct another one of these abominations. Back when Tim Burton used to make good movies, a long-lost age where I'm sure most of my viewers weren't even born yet, Edward Scissorhands was about a social outcast, played by Johnny Depp, who tries to find his place in a world that views him as an oddball. Seemingly a very similar story as Dumbo. But unfortunately, the Tim Burton of 2019 is not the Tim Burton of the 90s. While Tim Burton has made quite a few bad movies lately, Tim Burton is a filmmaker who in the past has proven that he does have talent and can make a good movie. And Dumbo, to a limited extent, is material that does seem to fit his style. So there was some hope that maybe, just maybe, that he could buck recent trends and give us a good movie. Ha 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 ha! No. The 2019 remake of Dumbo, like most of Disney's remakes, is a tone-deaf and ugly mess that not only is completely lacking all the charm of the original movie, but also lacks anything charming or original of its own to make up for it. So, what makes the 2019 remake of Dumbo the movie that really proves that an elephant can fall? Let's dig in and find out. At the movie's opening, we're informed that this movie is set in 1919, exactly 100 years before this movie was released, in a traveling circus that were pretty common during the time period. I think I can change the channel. Here we're introduced to the movie's new main characters. Holt, played by Colin Farrell, and his two kids, Millie and Joe. Holt is forced to tell his kids that he lost his arm in the war.
Still me.
I'm so excited to see you, Dad. This is my excited face.
Just as pretty as your woman.
We learned that this family were traveling circus performers who, of course, now have to contend with doing their act with only one arm. One major change that this movie has from the original is that in the remake, the animals don't talk.
Rongo! Where?
Which is not really a change that I mind all too much, because I do want this movie to tell this story in a different way. I don't want remakes to just be the exact same story, just with modern computer animation. I do want new filmmakers to tell an old story, maybe differently, and add their own spin on it. So, dumping the talking animals and simply focusing on the human characters, which didn't get much screen time in the original, is actually not really a bad direction to take this remake. Especially since Dumbo himself, the titular character of the movie, didn't talk in the original movie either. We're introduced here to Danny DeVito as the ringmaster, Max.
This winter, the influenza hit us like a hurricane. Natalia, Vincenzo, the Vandercheese. And then, your wife.
So, a much more likable character than the hard-nosed slave driver of the original movie. We learned that Max apparently sold off all his horses while they were gone.
Funny how?
He sold them.
But our act is the soul of this show. If only Millie would have learned to trade.
I don't want to be a show-off in their circus.
Show off? You see?
I want to make scientific discoveries. I want to be noticed for my mind.
I hope so, kid, because you ain't going to get noticed for your acting. But instead of horses, he has another surprise for everyone. An elephant that's about to give birth.
She's not sick. Any day now, she's having a baby.
So I guess they're ditching the whole babies are carried to their moms by storks thing. I guess that makes this the more realistic adult version of Dumbo. Though there is a little bit where the elephant sees storks outside her pen. I guess that's just a little nostalgic callback to the original. It serves no other purpose. And that is a really common trend in all of Disney's live-action remakes. They very frequently include nostalgic callbacks to the original movies, but ultimately the changes made to the story render these callbacks completely meaningless, and they serve absolutely no purpose other than being nostalgic callbacks. If you haven't seen the original, there is no reason for the audience to connect with these scenes. There is no reason why they're in the movie at all other than to call back to the original. If your movie relies entirely on nostalgia for the original, your movie has no value on its own. Back at camp, his stone-faced daughter, Millie, continues to babble about how she dreams of becoming a scientist or something.
Toys.
They're not toys. They're for my science experiments.
Did you know that the Walt Disney Corporation is a very progressive company? And because of that, they want young girls to get into STEM. And they will signal that in their movies, regardless of whether it makes any sense to the plot or not. Because they are a progressive company. They are so progressive and they care about you. They are not just saying that because they want your money. No. They genuinely want young girls to get into STEM. Really. Dumbo was set in a children's storybook world where animal babies are delivered to their moms by storks, trains have faces, mice sign Hollywood contracts, and, oh yeah, elephants fly. So very clearly, this was the perfect movie to include a message about why it's important to become a scientist and get into STEM. Very clearly, this was the movie for that message. The next morning, they find that the elephant did indeed give birth, and we finally meet the movie's titular character.
What is that?
Baby Jumbo.
I already got fake freaks in the freak show. I don't need a real one in the center ring.
They immediately all notice that the elephant has unusually large ears. You'd think this would be a positive, given that this is a circus and unusual people and animals attract more attention to a circus. But for some reason, the circus owner, Max, throws a weird tantrum over it.
Go. Telegram to Brugelbecker. We have been bilked with damaged goods. This is an aberration, travestation, and I demand my money back.
Look at him, Max.
No witnesses. We are going to be in Joplin for 2 weeks. We promised them a beautiful baby. You have until tomorrow night to fix that.
Me?
Yes, you.
This is my problem?
Yes, you tend the elephants. Make those ears disappear.
Now, I get this is where the movie's trying to basically replicate the original movie in terms of Dumbo getting bullied for having big ears, but it just is very off here and just doesn't make a lot of sense. See, in the original movie, the bullying Dumbo goes through is far more relatable, with the other elephants just kind of seeing him as a freak and treating him bad just because he's different, while all the humans just see him as kind of an odd curiosity. It really is staggering how the version with the talking animals and the babies carried to their moms by storks presents real-life issues in a far more realistic and relatable way. One positive I will say is that the computer-animated Dumbo in this movie is quite likable and looks very similar to his look in the original animated movie. Compared to the very creepy, uncanny valley look you get from Disney's quote-unquote live-action Lion King remake, this is a huge improvement. Remaking a movie that was entirely centered on emotional connections between characters, but with absolutely no facial expressions, is just the kind of decision I would expect from the Walt Disney Studio nowadays. It isn't long until the kids see something miraculous as the elephant sucks a feather into its trunk and then, using its ears as wings, seems to float in the air briefly. And it's one of many examples of this movie borrowing something from the original but not understanding its significance. In the original movie, the so-called magic feather was basically just the placebo effect. It was just a little lie that Timothy Mouse used to give Dumbo the confidence he needed in order to fly.
Have I got it? The magic feather! Now you can fly!
This boost of confidence gave him the knowledge that even after he loses the magic feather, that he really doesn't need it, and he can still fly on his own.
The magic feather was just a game. You can fly. Yes, you can.
Skipping way ahead, this movie also has its moment where Dumbo, of course, loses the magic feather and then realizes that he doesn't need it to fly anyway. But since it was never clear why the hell he needed the feather in the first place, this scene has way less impact.
Dumbo, remember this? From my mama? I can unlock any door. And you can too. But I don't need this key to do it. And you don't need the feather. Come on.
Was her just destroying a gift from her deceased mother for no reason really necessary as a way to get Dumbo to learn to fly, though? Like in the original movie, Dumbo's still sent out on stage, but with a little bonnet on to hide his big ears. But in this movie, a disaster's kind of caused by him reaching for a feather for some reason. Why does he do this? I don't know. In the original movie, he kind of trips over his big ears while on stage, so his big ears were directly the cause of the chaos that follows. Here the crowd are just really stupid and really childish and just see him having big ears like it's an offense to them.
What'd you do to that thing? That ain't a real elephant. Those ears are fake. Look! Look at the sign! Dumbo!
So yeah, that's how our main character gets his titular name in this movie. For real. Though this is kind of true in the original as well, where the name Dumbo actually was an insulting nickname given to the character that kind of just became the name he was primarily known for.
Ears! Oh, these! Aren't they funny?
Why, what a temper.
What did I do? Well, tell me, did I say anything?
Perfectly harmless remark.
I just said that they're funny. They are funny.
They certainly are.
After all, who cares about her precious little Jumbo?
Jumbo? You mean Dumbo? Dumbo.
Imagine being primarily known for an insulting nickname you were given by bullies. You'd be like Caligula. Look it up. The crowd continued to be angry and aggressive towards the young elephant, pretty much just for existing, and this of course triggers his mom to react to defend her baby. Much like it did in the original movie, this causes Dumbo's mother to create chaos that eventually leads to her being labeled a mad elephant and results in Dumbo being separated from his mom. Though in this version it actually makes it clear that she killed somebody during that rampage. Take from that what you will. We then, almost immediately after, like the next scene, get a rendition of the whole baby of mine sequence.
Baby mine, dry your eyes.
And this sequence is fine and all that, but it happens way too early in the movie. The similar scene in the original kind of benefited from the fact that it waited several minutes and a few scenes later before having this scene. In the original, several things happen after Dumbo's mom is taken away, but long before the baby of mine sequence, including meeting his best friend Timothy Mouse, a character who isn't in the remake. Unless this was supposed to be him or something. We also don't get to see Dumbo's mom cradle Dumbo with her trunk, which was a really cute and memorable scene in the original. And yes, I know elephants can't really do that, but they also can't fly with their ears, so whatever. The next day, Dumbo's mom is sold and taken away from him. I guess that's why they had the baby of mine sequence so early. And this, of course, makes Dumbo very sad, and our two child characters go in to comfort him.
Come on. Have one, Dumbo. We're calling him Dumbo now? If we call him Jumbo Jr., it might make him miss his mom. Here you go, Dumbo.
What? How would calling him the name the crowd was jeering at him on the night his mother was taken from him make him miss his mom less? If anything, all it would do is bring up memories of that night more than anything else. That makes absolutely no sense, kid. Dumbo, for some reason, once again sucks a feather into his trunk, and he starts flying in front of the kids. And the kids finally figure out that it's the feather, for some reason, that makes Dumbo fly.
It's not the peanuts that made him do it. It's the feathers.
The next day, Dumbo's sent out into the circus floor in his clown makeup. He's put on a high-rise. Millie climbs up and gives him the feather, and the big wow moment for the crowd finally comes.
Fly, Dumbo, fly.
Fly, Dumbo, fly. So, much like in the original movie, Dumbo in his clown makeup ends up wowing an entire crowd full of people at the circus by proving that he indeed is an elephant that can fly. Funny thing is, the remake's about twice as long as the original movie, and this scene does happen in the original movie at a very similar point in the runtime, but the movie ends almost immediately after, rather abruptly. Sadly, for this movie, we have a long, long, long way to go. News of Dumbo flying spreads fast, and we finally meet the movie's main bad guy, and we know he's the bad guy because he has a really big and shadowy room. Ooh. Can you just feel the fear? There's a kind of strange scene that comes up next where Dumbo hears a car honking and thinks it's his mom trumpeting. I don't know why he would think that. They don't sound anything alike. But it's there to introduce our next few characters. Here we're introduced to Michael Keaton as V.A. Vanderveer, our new villain, and Eva Green as Colette. A movie starring Eva Green where you never see her tits. Damn you, Disney! Vanderveer, of course, wants to inspect Dumbo before making his purchase.
It's the kids taught Dumbo.
Yeah? And how on earth did you do that?
With the scientific method.
No You didn't. You did not discover this through the scientific method whatsoever. You discovered Dumbo's ability to fly and the connection with the feather purely by dumb luck. If $10 blows to me in the wind, my discovering it does not make me a scientist. It just means I got lucky. Vander whatever tries to educate Max on the whole Disney business model.
Ownership shares? Max, look around you. Your entire way of life is dying. The future of the entertainment business is to bring the audience to you. And I've built that destination. What I'm lacking is a protege.
Definitely no resemblance between this asshole and this asshole. Van Devere hires the entire circus, and along with Dumbo, takes them to Dreamland, a massive entertainment park full of characters, rides, and all kinds of cynical corporate entertainment. Now, you could say this is an example of Disney completely lacking self-awareness, but I don't think it is. I think it's a lot more sinister than that. I think this is the Disney equivalent of, if I did it, here's how it happened. We also see a kind of Harvey Weinstein dynamic as Van Devere seems to kiss his assistant Colette without her consent, making it very clear that she isn't his wife or anything. She just works for the guy and doesn't seem to like him very much.
You really are Stinky Pete, aren't you?
They decide to do additional training with Dumbo, deciding that they need to figure out a way for Dumbo to be able to fly while carrying Colette as his rider. So him being a flying elephant is not enough? He has to be able to also carry a human rider to impress anyone or something? I mean, sure, Dumbo can fly, but did he hold up an entire plane in the air like Superman did? I think not. Dumbo's not so impressive. But yes, they actually do figure out how to get Dumbo not only to fly, but also carry Colette on his back while doing so. Very impressive, little fella. The original movie was set in a universe where kids are taken to their moms by storks, and even it seems to recognize that a flying elephant was a big deal all on its own. Then, because we haven't had enough half-assed references to the original movie in this shitty remake, we get this movie's rendition of the pink elephants on parade scene, and it's downright confusing. Huh? What? The pink elephant scene in the original Dumbo was clearly meant to be a delusion caused by Dumbo being intoxicated by accidentally drinking alcohol that was left by the clowns. And yeah, this scene was incredibly weird. It looked like the animators were high when they were animating it, and it has very little to do with the main plot. But it was just kind of a charmingly odd sequence where the animators just thought that they could just go nuts and animate whatever the hell they want, and that's fine, I guess. And don't tell me they can't reference drug use in a movie made in the present day, because The Good Dinosaur came out only 4 years before this movie, and it has this weird, trippy scene. Missed opportunity in Prehistoric Plan not to include a scene where tyrannosaurs were high off their ass. Here, I don't know what the explanation is. Can't be some kind of holographic ticket set 100 years ago, so I guess it's just magic. I guess this is like just some kind of magic show, and these are wizards. I really don't know what is going on here. They even give us a weird celebrity cameo as they bring in Michael Buffer to quote the original movie.
Proudly presents, making his Dreamland debut. You've seen a horse fly. You've seen a dragon fly. You've even seen a house fly. But you haven't seen anything until you see an elephant fly. Let's get ready for Dumbo!
So you're going to quote the crows from the original movie, but of course not include them. I wonder why the Disney didn't want to include these characters.
Yeah, I seen all that too. I seen a peanut stand, heard a rubber band. I seen a needle that winked its eye. But I be done seeing about everything when I see an elephant fly.
No idea. It's a mystery. Dumbo's put up on stage with Colette trying to ride his back, Unfortunately, we find out later that Vanderfuck removed the safety nets. Why'd he do this? I don't know.
I can't see the nets. They're invisible.
Yes, I get that Vanderveer is evil. Yes, I get that he's the villain. The problem is that none of his actions ever seem to help any of his goals. All of his actions do nothing except push people away from him, make people oppose him, which only hurts all his goals. He's a character who does evil and horrible things for literally no reason. That does not make him an interesting villain. It just makes him a bumbling moron. Colette falls but is given a rope to break her fall, and then Dumbo finally hears something he's been waiting to hear for a long time. His mother, who apparently is also being held at the exact same park. Well, that's a pretty staggering coincidence right there. Hearing his mother makes Dumbo immediately fly into action, and as he flies around the stage only a couple times, infuriating Vanderbilt, he eventually leaves the stage, and following his mother's trumpet, comes to a freak show where dozens of animals are in chains, being treated cruelly for the entertainment of the crowd, as old-time circuses often did. You know, I really think that this is where the Baby of Mine sequence should have been. It would have had much more emotional payoff being here than where they actually put it in the movie. Vanderbilt comes, continuing what has to be the worst performance of Michael Keaton's entire career, comes in to separate Dumbo from his mom again. And apparently, back at the show, people are angry that Dumbo left.
I want my money now.
I don't understand. The elephant flies, you saw it.
I saw it vanishing act. I'm not investing 1 cent until I can see this works. You can't control your animal.
It's a flying elephant. Even if it's not very well controlled, even if it's not very well trained, it's still a flying elephant. That would still be enough to attract a crowd. It does not need to be well trained. It does not need to be well controlled. Vanderbilt is told that the elephant in his cage was Dumbo's mom, and you'd think he'd view this as a positive thing, that he has the way of making the elephant happy, significantly increasing the likelihood that it'll perform well, but because Vanderbilt is evil and a fucking moron, he somehow sees this as a bad thing.
Mr. Vanderveer, please. All Dumbo wants is his mama. Just reunite them, and he'll do whatever you want.
No, he'll do whatever she wants. You think I'd have bought her if I thought she was related to him? Doesn't help me at all.
Vanderveer might seriously be the dumbest villain, like, in any movie. Literally the solution to all his problems, the way to achieve all his goals, is right in front of him, and the only thing keeping him from it is his own stupidity. This is actually incredible. Literally reuniting Dumbo with his mom would solve all his problems. Why doesn't he do it? Because he's an idiot. That's literally it. I know the character is evil, he's unethical, that's fine and all that, but his actions here aren't just evil, they are stupid and they are self-defeating. Vanderdick continues to throw a fit and continue to say evil shit for absolutely no reason, and now wants to kill Dumbo's mom.
Get rid of the mother. You know where to take her. And treat yourself to some new boots.
But sir, you can't just kill her.
Why not?
So yeah, this movie feels the need to shoehorn a message about the importance of corporate ethics. Really? Yeah, the fucking Walt Disney Corporation is going to preach about how entertainment companies should be more ethical towards their workers and animals. Seriously, Disney, fuck off. Hey Disney, remember that time you made, like, the shittiest movie ever made and shot it next to concentration camps? Seriously, in the credits of one of their movies, they gave special thanks to an organization that's carrying on ethnic cleansing. So yeah, making shameless, nostalgic, shitty remakes is really the least of Disney's sins. The stuff they're involved with over there is very, very dark. In this drone footage smuggled out of China, we see the oppression of the Uyghurs as we see several enslaved people blindfolded, shackled, and being presumably loaded onto trains to be worked in various fields or factories throughout China.
But I'm always worried. All the time I don't feeling I'm safe here.
The second time I was detained. I was taken to a special room and placed in a high chair. Bands held my arms and the legs in place and tightened when they pressed a button. The guards put a helmet on my shaved head. Each time I was electrocuted, my whole body would shake violently, and I could feel the pain in my veins. I thought I would rather die than go through this torture. I begged them to kill me. Before we ate breakfast, which was water with very little rice, we had to sing songs hailing the Communist Party. We had to repeat in Chinese, in quote, "Long live Xi Jinping," and in quote, "Lenience for those who repent and punishment for those who resist." Anyone who could not memorize a book of slogans and rules within 14 days would be denied food or beaten.
These scenes of terror, torture, rape, slavery, and murder have been brought to you in part by the Walt Disney Corporation. Seriously, if you're someone who grew up watching Disney movies, how does that make you feel?
The Uyghurs grew too numerous. They might have risen against us.
Tell me you didn't do this.
Sometimes, for the greater good, sacrifices must be made.
Sacrifices.
Oh, my customer. They were only slaves. Ha!
So yeah, Disney, as long as you continue to profit off China's murderous authoritarian regime and other authoritarian regimes around the world, you can take any messages about the importance of corporate responsibility in your movies and shove it. Vanderveer continues to be a complete douche and fires everyone the next day for pretty much no reason, which predictably leads to everyone turning against him. Who could have thought?
We wanted to see him one last time.
One last time to see him fly. I don't think he wants to anymore.
I'm afraid it's rather worse than that.
Mr. Sotheby.
I've come to clear my conscience. I resigned my position as soon as I heard him give the order.
What order?
Mrs. Jumbo will be gone by tomorrow night. And she's not meant to survive.
This dreamland doesn't deserve him.
No circus does.
Well, who's gonna be willing to help me? Set Dumbo and his mama free.
And this right here is what I hated about this remake more than anything else. One of the best things about the original Dumbo is that it has no real central villain. The villain is simply the prejudice and ignorance of the general public.
It's all the fault of that little Freak.
Yes, him with those ears that only a mother could love.
How amazingly cruel they are to this kid is kind of shocking looking at it.
Gives me an idea. Let's raise the platform the elephant jumps off of.
Yeah, if they laugh when he jumps 20 feet, they'll laugh twice as hard if he jumps 40 feet.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Simple mathematics. Let's make it 80 feet. Don't be a piker. 180.
Make it 300.
1,000. Yeah, that's good.
Hey, be careful. You'll hurt the little guy.
Oh, go on. Elephants ain't got no feelings. No, they're made of rubber. This idea is sensational.
You know, I think Dumbo did more to get kids to hate clowns than Stephen King ever did. But what was really so important about this movie, the reason why this movie is so timeless, is that it aimed a mirror right at the audience. You look at the way Dumbo is treated, and you might think of the way you've treated others. So I ask you, has this ever been you?
Ain't that the funniest thing you ever saw? Look at his ears.
Yeah, his ears are still sticking out.
Has this ever been you?
Well, frankly, I wouldn't eat at the same bale of hay with him.
Nor I, dearie.
I should say.
Nor I. That's just how I feel about it. Here he comes now.
Pretend you don't see him.
It probably has. And that's what makes Dumbo such an important movie for children to watch. This movie taught kids empathy at an early age. It's a movie that you really can watch and really grow and learn from. And as a kid growing up with autism, I could really relate to Dumbo feeling like an outcast just because of how he was born. This is a movie that was a favorite of mine as a kid, probably for that reason. In the remake, the message ultimately is we have to band together and fight the evil rich guy doing bad things, and the bigotry and ignorance of the general public gets a complete free pass. This, of course, isn't to say that the rich and elite of our society are any better than the general public. As a matter of fact, very often they're the worst among us. But that doesn't mean the general public are saints. The common everyday person is just as capable of being a bully and a bigot. And the best kind of media are ones that really get the audience to reflect on themselves. Reflect on their families, reflect on their friends, and reflect on their own behavior. Dumbo did that. The original. Not the remake. So all of our plucky, beautiful, heroic heroes decide to get to work, trying to foil the evil plans of the mega corporation that isn't paying the actors' salaries.
We've lost power. Even the cages? But the animals.
Yeah, so what? They're behind metal bars. It's not like they can just break out a la Jurassic Park just because the power's out. What the hell will happen due to animals' cages not having electricity for a few hours? What's the big deal? Vanderveer figures out that they're up to something because even he isn't that stupid, and he springs into action to prevent the performer's escape.
Hey!
What are you doing up there?
Hey, I'm Max Medici, Vanderveer's partner. He's just a maintenance man fixing a light. Get back to your posts.
Yes, sir, Mr. Medici.
And the guards are actually dumb enough to just believe them. They don't question why a maintenance man would be up there all by himself with no safety equipment and where none of the lights are actually out. They just believe whatever explanation that they're told. Great job. It'd be like if Scrooge McDuck just trusted these guys with his car keys. So Holt manages to cut a hole in the big top tent that Dumbo is able to fly out of. Colette flies on Dumbo's back to the main control tower, where they open the front gate so the performers with Dumbo's mom are able to escape. But they also pull additional levers that kills the power to the entire park, apparently stranding hundreds of guests on the rides, even though such a thing was totally unnecessary to escape. Vanderfuck, being the king of morons, decides to start randomly pulling levers with predictable results.
Mr. Vanderveer, wait! We have to reset the mains or you could cause a surge. Right now, it's impossible.
Nothing's impossible.
Mr. Vanderveer! Mr. Vanderveer, stop!
There you have it, people. We have the dumbest villain of all time. Here we have a villain who, because he's angry about them stealing an elephant that he was going to kill anyway, he decides to overload the power system and set his entire facility on fire. Great villain there. Criminal mastermind. The fire quickly spreads, destroying Dreamland as hundreds of people run for their lives, but Millie and Joe, being chased by one of Vanderveer's henchmen, decide to run into one of the burning tents. Because running into burning buildings is exactly what kids should do during a fire, right? All hope seems lost until, of course, Dumbo flies in to save the day. Somehow knowing exactly where they were when the entire park is on fire, because magic, I guess, I have absolutely no idea. So we get the bullshit scene where Dumbo realizes he doesn't need the feather to fly, and they all fly to safety. think you have much bigger problems, you stupid fuck.
Hey, right there, arrest that man. He stole my elephant.
And now Vanderbilt, I guess, decides to turn around, and I guess he just now starts noticing that his entire circus has been burning to the ground.
Wow, this is a disaster. Come on, I'll buy you a hot dog.
Ha 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 ha! How silly that is. His whole facility burned to the ground, with hundreds of people inside. Seriously, how many people were trapped on those rides that were shut down all of a sudden? There is no way they got off. There is no way everyone in that facility got out alive. Hundreds of people are probably dead. And all those other trapped animals in those cages, how did they get out? We never see them again in this movie, so we can all just assume that they suffered an excruciating death because of our heroes' heroic actions. Score 1 for the good guys. But it all results in Dumbo being reunited with his mom, so that's the important thing. Fuck all the people that burned to death, I guess. So while the original Dumbo taught tolerance and empathy, the remake, the woke, more educated remake, teaches kids the glory of being a pyromaniac. Awesome. So, of course, we get the cliche, tearful moment where they send Dumbo back to India to live in the wild, and we get this weird TV commercial-like scene, even though, again, this movie is set in 1919.
Ladies and gentlemen, introducing our world-famous flying elephant. Welcome to the Medici family circus, where we believe no wild animals shall be held in captivity.
So yeah, the movie feels the need to end itself with a virtue signal against circuses and animal captivity in general, which is not a message I disagree with at all. As a matter of fact, I think it's a very good thing that live animal performances are being phased out. I think it's a very good thing that movies use computer animated animals instead of real ones. I think the societal progress there is good, but that's not what Dumbo was about. It's not what this story is about, and there are so many movies that tell this message a lot better. We see that Holt is back to his old job of horseback riding, even though a minute ago you said that no animals were to be used in performances, but okay. And we see that he's got a new prosthetic limb, which looks robotic. In 1919. God, this movie is so stupid. At least the stupid is almost over. And the movie ends with a final spectacular effects shot where Dumbo and a bunch of obviously computer-animated elephants are living in peace in India. Dumbo flies around them, impressing all of them, and the movie's over. Yay. So that was the 2019 remake of Dumbo, and it's a movie that will make you believe an elephant can sink. Dumbo 2019 is a perfect example of everything wrong with modern Hollywood. It banks off nostalgia for the past, but has no genuine respect for it. Instead, feeling the need to trash the past is terrible and signaling how woke and awesome they are today. But in doing so, it completely loses track of what made the original so well remembered in the first place. Changing a story about a young outcast struggling for acceptance into an ugly virtue signal about corporate ethics from a company that does not practice what it preaches. But even then, its characters are dull, its visuals are at times ugly, its story lacks originality, it often makes no sense. Like most of Disney's recent live-action remakes, it offers no reason to watch it when we already have a version of the story that is better in just about every way, which makes this movie a complete waste of time. Well, that sucked, but is Disney at least done with these remakes? Ah, fuck. Till next time, I'm some Loudmouth on the internet. You just heard my opinion.